James Stockman and Steve Danskin asked two questions that are very similar. So I'll take them together. James Stockton wants to know social justice versus justice. Well said. And Steve Danskin wants to know individual versus identity politics, which are kind of the same thing. Let's talk about the justice issue first. Social justice versus justice. They are opposed to each other. Social justice is revenge justice. It's not justice. Social justice is revenge. Social justice is a term we use to entitle a certain group of people to take things from other people because of damage that may or may not have been done to their ancestors. So the problem with social justice is that the victims are not rewarded. The perpetrators are not punished. A great example of social justice is this entire reparations for slavery thing. People whose parents no. People who 6 or 7 generations ago may have held slaves, are expected to pay another group of people who 6 or 7 generations ago were slaves, or may not have been because most blacks in America are not descended from slaves. But a whole group of people is saying, we want to take from you and give to us because of what happened, and that's social justice. No, it's not. It's stealing, and it's not social justice at all. Likewise, if a gay man, young man, is beaten up by 3 guys and tied to the back of a pickup truck and drugged down the road for 5 miles, that's not a special crime. That's first-degree murder. That's what the crime is called. The crime is called first-degree murder, and those people that did it should be put in the electric chair. There's nothing special about him. It's not a hate crime because he's gay. I don't buy it. I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. I understand what the mechanism is. I understand why they're doing it, but the case doesn't stand to me. I'm sorry, is first-degree murder not an adequate punishment for what happened to that guy? Where do you go from that? It's a hate crime. Folks, everything is a hate crime. Every crime is a hate crime. That's actually a kind of a pithy sentence. I think maybe somebody should write that down and say Bill Riddle wrote that, because it's true. Every crime is a hate crime. What a profound insight I just came up with. I'm so pleased with myself. But it's really true. If you think about it, every crime is a hate crime. Every one of them. If you steal a candy bar from a 7-Eleven, you're expressing your contempt for the individual owner of that store who is going to have to make that up out of his own pocket. It's a hate crime. Certainly when you invade somebody's house, even if you're just burglarizing the house, you're taking people's jewelry, you're taking people's family heirlooms, you're taking things that they've worked for weeks or months or years to achieve, and you're just taking it and walking it out. What do you call that? Of course it's hate crime. Of course it's hatred towards the people in there. It's dehumanizing the people whose lives you've just stolen. And not only have you stolen their stuff and have you stolen their memories, you've stolen their sense of security. They'll never be quite the same again. They'll never sleep quite the same again because of your actions. Of course it's a hate crime. You can play this game forever. No. First-degree murder is a crime. Burglary is a crime. Aggravated assault is a crime. Rape is a crime. Those are good enough. Social justice is not justice. There's only individual justice. Was somebody injured by somebody else? Yes. Did the perpetrator pay? Yes or no? If they didn't pay, it's not justice. If they did, it is. If the perpetrator and the victims are not connected, then it's not justice. In other words, if you're being asked to pay for slavery reparations when you never held slaves to somebody else who never was a slave, that's not justice. Now, the people who were slaves might be entitled to some justice, and they were denied that justice, but by re-inflicting injustice on other people doesn't retroactively make that just. You can't go and retroactively fix those people who are victims of slavery. You can't do anything for them. They're dead. They've been dead for 200 years. So what do you do? What do? You eliminate the injustice, but you don't erase the injustice. You stop doing it. You can't go back and repair those victims and make them whole. And you certainly can't do it by making an entirely new class of victims and a whole new injustice upon the people who weren't even the perpetrators. So, anyway, that's my vision of social justice. It doesn't exist. It's a weapon used to bludgeon people into doing what they want politically. Just keep that in mind. You won't have any problems. Individual versus identity politics. Identity politics is the same thing. Identity politics is part of critical theory. It, coupled with critical theory, is the sword. Political correctness is the shield. These are the weapons that they use to divide the country into tribes that can then be played not against each other. They're too smart for that. Every single one of these tribes is placed against the middle. is against the dominant culture. That's what has to be destroyed, the dominant culture, which in our case is a very tough thing to destroy because our dominant culture is everyone has access to the dominant culture. Our dominant culture, for the first time in history, said, e pluribus unum, out of many one. Come here, legally, fill out the forms, stand in line, take the test, raise your right hand. You're as American as anybody else. You're probably more American than anybody else because you've gone to enormous trouble and risk to be here. How do you defeat that? That's rather a profoundly inclusive system of beliefs. Well, you have to divide the country up into tribes, and you have to tell them that they've had horrible injustices done to them, and you have to tell them that they're owed money and benefits from other people, and you play on people's sense of envy and greed and laziness. These are powerful motivators, and if you don't think they are, think about this. Every animal in the world, every single animal in the world, from bacteria to blue whales, will eat garbage if the garbage is in front of them, then go out and get better food if it requires more effort. You put free food down, you get fat cats, you get fat people, you get fat squirrels, you get fat bacteria. You get a lot of bacteria anyway. It's pretty simple. Pretty simple. So, yeah, it's a great question.